SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
This is Jack Hoffman. For nearly 31 years, Tico's Steakhouse has been a staple for fine dining in Jackson, Mississippi. I would like to invite you to come experience our family tradition of our hospitality, sizzling steaks, and healthy poured beverages. Call today or stop in and experience Tico's in the second generation.
With locations in Ridgeland on County Line Road and now on the Square in Oxford.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5,
Good morning.
my mother said I was gonna be.
Good Monday morning. Welcome to Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi. Thanks for joining us. Hope you had a great weekend. We welcome you to the start of a new week. Alongside Lance Talbert, I'm Richard Cross. Thanks for joining us. You want to be a part of the conversation this morning? Won't you join us on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. Give your business the edge with gigabit fiber internet from C Spire Business. Find them online at cspire.com/business. It wasn't necessarily a false spring last week, but it was really, really nice. And then it got cool over the weekend. We're going to be about where we ought to be at the beginning of the month of March. Today is March 3rd, 2025, northern part of the state of Mississippi. You're going to top out at about 65 degrees today. It's going to be a little cloudy, but you're going to get some sunshine mixed in. How about over in the eastern part of the state in Meridian? Same thing, going to be about 65. You move a little farther south in the state, it'll warm up just a little bit. Not going to be too bad today in coastal Mississippi. We check in with Gulfport as we get things started on this Monday morning, and they're going to be, well, not quite getting to 70, but going to be knocking on 70's door, high of 68 when it's all said and done in coastal Mississippi. Not a bad day all the way around. Kind of a busy weekend as well. Lance, good morning to you, my friend.
What's up, RC? Good morning, man.
What's up, brother? How was the weekend?
Oh, it was great. You know, I'm looking at the temperatures in D.C. is 29 degrees, and that little fireside chat they had on Friday, that was really nice.
Is that what we're going to call that? There was a fireplace in there, but it wasn't roaring like the last time we saw it.
No, a little warmer today, though, probably after the acceptance of the deal and all that. But yeah, that was an interesting Friday. A pretty chilly room in there, but yeah, kind of mixed with the climate, I guess. But I think Zelensky, he came around. Figured it out. And I'm like, I think I need America.
We'll see where this all goes. There's a lot there. Again, you can join us on the C Spire text line. We got a couple of birthdays of note today as we get started.
If you say so, yeah. There's a couple.
It's not a great day. It's not a great day on the famous birthdays front. Back in 1847. An old man named Bell invented that contraption that we know so well. I'm making a song up here. Alexander Graham Bell, born on this day in 1847, Scottish-born inventor, known for having patented the first telephone and for co-founding the American Telephone and Telegraphy Company. Yeah, you know what the acronym is for. That was in 1885. Bell was inspired to work in hearing and speech by his family's work in the field and the fact that his mother and wife were both deaf. It was research on hearing devices that led to the invention, which would come to be known as the telephone. He patented that in 1876. So, mother deaf, okay. Did he just have a soft spot in his heart for those with hearing issues, and so he chose a wife that was also deaf? How does that work?
That's interesting, huh? He must have been very good at communicating, though. You know, with somebody that was deaf, and it probably just brought down that barrier that a lot of us would have. But trying to communicate.
I suppose. 1962, one of the greatest athletes of all time was born. Jackie Joyner Kersey, former track and field athlete, who competed in both the heptathlon and the long jump. 3 gold, 1 silver, 2 bronze Olympic medals at 4 different Olympic games. 4-time gold medalist, twice in both the heptathlon and the long jump at the World Championship. Since 1988, she has held the world record for the heptathlon. What an athlete!
Who else is 63 today? One of the most amazing athletes. He did push-ups and sit-ups all day long.
Herschel
Walker.
Man.
One of the greatest college running backs of all time. Also a great pro, but, I mean, the dude is 63, looks like he's 28. Yeah.
All right, so 7 events in the heptathlon. You tell me which one you would be best. At which you would be best. 100-meter hurdle, high jump, shot put, 200 meters, long jump, javelin, or the 800-meter.
Probably the javelin.
Oh, yeah?
I was a thrower, so I'd have to go with that. The running part, I can run for a long time, but I'm not the fastest at it, so I'm going to go with the javelina.
800-meter, you're talking 2 laps.
Yeah, I can do it. I mean, I can handle the 2 laps at full speed, but those girls and guys, they're a lot faster than I am.
Could you run the 100-meter hurdle without knocking over one of the hurdles?
Now, you better put it on the lowest one. I'm not. I don't know what the lowest notch is, but let's go with that one. I probably could make it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. Jackie Joyner Kersey set the world record in 1988, and it stands still today.
Now, was that she did that at the Olympics, if I remember right? That was I can't remember if she
Seoul,
said,
right?
Yeah, I think I loved that. Was one of my favorite Olympics of as a child, the '88 one, and everything was such a big deal. But she was amazing. I'm trying to remember all of the golds and people that scored in that. Was that like Mary Lou Retton in those as well? I'm trying to remember, but the '88 and the '84 were really good ones. Yeah,
that's a good question. '84 was Los Angeles. '88 was Seoul, South Korea. But that was also in the era where we did the Winter Olympics and the Summer Olympics in the same year, and they stayed on the 4-year cycle, and then decided, let's do this every 2 years, and we'll just alternate.
Yeah, I kind of like that too, because you get Olympics every 2 years. But I always loved the speed skaters in the winter, and then the giant slalom. Those were kind of the two things: the jumping, and then the speed skaters. Those dudes' legs and girls, I mean, they're as big as trees. Watching them speed skate, it's amazing.
What would it take for you to attempt the ski jump? Because I watched that and I'm like, they're just flying through the air. That's amazing.
Like a big pool or a big lake that I could land in. Yeah,
it wouldn't be a soft landing, brother.
You got the skis on, so maybe shed the skis right before and dive in. It'd beat landing on that hard ice though if you didn't land it. So
yeah, that feels good. I got one more, and this is just for fun for you. That's all it is. 1997, Camila Cabello. She has the top digital single of 2018. It is a top 15 all-time digital single with nearly 20 downloads. Do you recognize this song? Havana, ooh, na, na. That doesn't do anything for you, Lance?
I remember it, but not greatly. Yeah, it's
got a good beat to it.
Yeah, it's got a good little beat.
Okay. Yeah.
What else was important today? 1931. They made the Star Spangled Banner the national anthem. And, so that happened in 1931. It seems like that's a long time to wait, but to make it official, but that's what it says. And written by Francis Scott Key, officially became the national anthem in 1931.
Yeah. Get a message. I have intentionally said coastal Mississippi as a bit of a tip of the cap to our friend Ricky Matthews. And we get a message that says, "Hey pal, it's the Mississippi Gulf Coast." I think it's call it whatever you want. Ricky can probably explain his rationale on why coastal Mississippi instead of the Mississippi Gulf Coast. We should have him on one morning and do that. I don't know if that's a debate worth having. If it's something that people are super passionate about. He said Milton Segarra was hired in 2018 by Visit Mississippi Gulf Coast and resigned in 2021 when it was discovered. It said he borrowed a promotional campaign from another place. Anyway, that's out there. Anything else on this day? The 91, right? That was the day that Rodney King,
yeah. And then you had the blast off from Cape Kennedy in 69. That's when they were testing the first manned flight of the lunar module. That was a pretty big deal back then. And then Sirhan in 69 admitted that he had killed Robert Kennedy. So kind of a bunch of stuff happened on this day in history. Not a bunch of birthdays, but some interesting things. And then Steve Fawcett, I don't know if people remember, but became the first person to fly an airplane all the way around the world without refueling. And that was in 05. So that's a pretty big deal, too.
Had a big old gas tank.
Yeah, he was real good at docking while flying, yeah. I guess you didn't have to – I don't know if refueling means he didn't land to refuel or if there was no refueling at all. I need to look into that because, like you said, that'd have to be a pretty dang big gas tank there.
Is it coastal America or the Gulf of America coast? I've lost track.
We digress.
Mornings with Richard Cross, just getting started with you. Rub that sleep out of your eyes, shake the cobwebs off, pour that first cup of coffee, and pull up a chair. Glad to be with you. We got some news headlines coming up. We got sports headlines coming up. We'll have a lottery update for you in the 7 o'clock hour. Dr. Jennifer Bryan will join us from the Mississippi State Medical Association, as will Jeff McCutchen, the police chief in Oxford, and Marie Cochran. We will talk a little bit about Kratom and potential regulation for that substance. Back after this, Mornings with Richard Cross.
From the Venable
Partner, the sun is up, the coffee is on, and you're starting your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk Mississippi.
Thanks for being with us on this Monday morning on Super Talk Mississippi. Hope you had a great weekend. Probably a better weekend than in parts of the state of South Carolina, where South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster yesterday declared a state of emergency as wildfires in the Carolinas and Georgia scorched thousands of acres and forced people to flee their home. More than 175 fires were burning in South Carolina, according to the governor's office. That was early yesterday morning. Fires are fueled by unusually dry conditions and gusty winds. Those conditions are expected to fade as a cold front pushes out the dry air mass over the southeast and brings rain by Tuesday. That is an optimistic forecast by the National Weather Service. Early this morning, the number of fires has gone from 175 down to 163. Near Myrtle Beach in the Carolina Forest, about 1,600 acres had burned by Sunday night. That fire was about 30% contained. There were people in 8 different neighborhoods in Horry County that were forced to evacuate their homes. Members of the South Carolina Army National Guard used Black Hawk helicopters to drop 600 gallons of water at a time on the blazes. Really, really scary stuff in South Carolina. And it feels we've become so accustomed to seeing wildfires on the West Coast, Pacific Northwest, parts of California, parts of Arizona. It feels like it's really rare on the eastern seaboard, especially in the southeastern part of the United States. I don't know, man. Reading that story, it hits a little closer to home. Maybe it's because I'm jumping on a plane later today and headed to South Carolina because I got to be in Columbia tomorrow for a basketball game. But scary stuff there, and hopefully they're able to get that contained very, very quickly. Bring it back a little closer to home. You may have seen this story last week. The Army Corps of Engineers, as it pertains to lakes, actually it's the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. They have implemented a new state lake permit fee structure. So, if you're headed to your favorite body of water this spring or summer, maybe you're out doing a little crappie fishing as the crappie get to spawning or get close to spawning and folks are trying to get out, you got some new fees associated with that. There is still no fee for youth fishing, which is under the age of 16. If you are just fishing on the bank or off of a bridge with no boat launch, it's going to cost you $5. If you are launching a boat, that fee is $9. Now, if you go on the regular, then the best way to do it is with an annual permit. You can get a boat launching, fishing, skiing, recreational boat permit that covers everything for $125. And that's probably the easiest way to go about it. And then camping and pavilion rental permits as well. 1 day camping, $25. Up to 30 days of camping, you can buy a $500 permit. And then primitive and tent camping, $20. So the state's Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks Department operates 18 fishing lakes and 21 park lakes all across the state of Mississippi. Got to be legal. It's a whole lot easier to buy the permit, Lance, than it is to pay the fine.
Oh, definitely. Yes. Stay legal out there. Pay your little fee and have fun. I've never been one of those that when you drive through the park and there's that little thing where you put your money in back in the old days. See, I'd always put the money in. I never wanted to be, on the wrong side of the park law.
You remember when it was $1, don't you?
Oh,
you
yeah.
put the $1 or the $2 in that little envelope?
In that little envelope. It was on the honor system, too, which it was really cool. But, yeah, I never wanted to test that,
Yeah. Never felt like the best plan.
Yeah, well, you don't want to mess with a game warden. I know that. And park rangers are about the same. You don't want to mess with those guys.
All good people. Really,
they do their
really
job. So they do a great job, though. Yeah, you don't want to put them in a position.
Yeah. Over in the United Kingdom, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer rallied his European counterparts yesterday to shore up their borders and throw their full weight behind Ukraine as he announced outlines of a plan to end what they call Russia's war. Starmer said every nation must contribute to that in the best way it can, bringing different capabilities and support to the table, but all taking responsibility to act, all stepping up their own share of the burden. His exhortation to 18 fellow European leaders that they need to do the heavy lifting for their own security comes just 2 days since Friday after the United States backing of Ukraine appeared to be in jeopardy. We are going to get into that Oval Office meeting this morning. We got a lot to talk about on that front. The meetings in Europe have been overshadowed by the extraordinary scolding that took place on live television at the White House. Starmer used the opportunity as part of his broader effort to bridge the gap between Europe and the U.S. and also salvage what seemed like the start of a peace process before Friday's spat. See, that's the interesting thing. Lance, you referenced a second ago that there are some people that are reporting that Zelensky is now ready to return to the negotiating table and sign the deal with the United States. It's a deal that would give the United States access to a portion of the revenue generated from mineral rights and become a business partner with Ukraine, allowing the United States to recoup about $500 billion that has been spent during this Russia-Ukraine war. And, boy, that blew up spectacularly on Friday. And there's so many things that we've got to get to on this front.
Yeah, somebody needs to give the guy a lesson on, quit fiddling with your nose, put on a suit, and say thank you, and get out of there. If you want to argue, do it off camera. I mean, this guy is apparently not very skilled in diplomacy, but, I guess he was trying to rattle some sabers before he ran home with his tail between his legs.
I suppose, there have been so many takes from this. The one that I thought, I started to say ridiculous. I don't know that it's a ridiculous take. But Karl Rove, who has been part of the establishment of D.C. politics as a political campaign advisor, he's pretty middle of the road. Some would say Karl Rove has turned liberal along the way. I don't care necessarily to debate his politics, but he pointed out that this never should have been put on television. Like this is a conversation that should be happening behind closed doors. Nobody needs to see how the sausage is made.
Can't agree more.
I couldn't disagree more. So you agree with Karl?
I don't think that you do that in that setting. I mean, honestly, I've never seen that before.
I don't think there was any intention going in to do that in that setting. Although there are a lot of people that disagree with that. But you think it should be done behind closed doors. See, I'm kind of the opposite.
Generally, I'm kind of glad people got to see what he was made of, though.
That's kind of my point. We in terms of shining light into what is normally a dark behind closed doors process, brother, you got a big old dose of light on Friday.
Oh yeah, and I think
you got a chance to see how the sausage is made, and you got a chance to see a bully, corrupt leader. And I'm sorry, you may be.
I'm with you on that.
For the people of Ukraine, but if you think that Volodymyr Zelensky is anything more than a disrespectful bully leader, then I'm not sure what you're watching. I'm not sure what you're paying attention to.
I'm 100% with you. That's where that was a grand mistake and a misstep by him, not by Trump. I mean, in JD, I don't think so.
And look, the whole, wear a suit thing, I agree. You should wear a suit when you go to the Oval Office, but that's been his thing, right? We're in the middle of war. I'll put on a suit when the war is over. So he hadn't worn a suit in 3 years, whatever. Basketball coaches don't wear suits on the sideline. We are in a far more casual society than we've ever been. Elon Musk rolls into the Oval Office all the time with a T-shirt and a sport coat.
Yeah, but he's not the president of a country either.
I agree. I completely agree. I just feel like that's something that people have gotten caught up in. But maybe that was the first sign of disrespect. But you don't. The United States of America, which frankly means us, it's not just Washington, D.C., it's not just the president, it's all of us. We have been the patron saint, if you will, of Ukraine. Without the United States, and I think it's the point that Donald Trump was trying to drive home, without us, you lose, period. And you want to come in here and you want to be disrespectful? And you want to be demanding, and you're trying to plead your case to the American people when all you have to do is plead your case to Donald Trump and show some humility? We got some cuts. Marco Rubio explains it really, really well in an interview that he did with Fox. We'll get to that. Scott Jennings on CNN said literally all he had to do, put on a suit, come to the Oval Office, keep his mouth shut, say thank you, go eat lunch, sign the deal, and go home and get ready for the war to end as peace negotiations begin. And maybe take a bite of humble pie. That's all that had to happen. Volodymyr Zelensky could not do that. C-Spire text line open to you. We got sports headlines, big sports weekend. We'll get to that when we come back. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
I'll make love to you any old time.
No matter where you're from, Abbeville, Batesville, DeIberville, or any other ville in the SIP, you're starting your day off right. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
C-Spire text line 601-879-4395. Ray in Long Beach says Volodymyr Zelensky doesn't want the war to end because his cash cow will die and his screen time will end. That's what Ray in Long Beach says.
And he may have to hold an election, too,
Yeah. Go watch Zelensky's body language in his interview with Brett Baird. He is nervous and constantly looking at someone off stage as he speaks. His body language says a lot.
Did you see his, I think it was his speechwriter or maybe his chief of staff or something, they panned over to her and she was just looking down like, oh my God, he went off script. No, like they had rehearsed it pretty well and didn't go the way they had planned.
Sean in Clinton says, love how JD handled business too. America's finally in good hands. Thank the Lord. God bless the USA. Now, here is a dissenting opinion. My light was different than yours in terms of the light being shined on the process and getting to see behind the curtain. He said, I thought Vance and Trump were bullies, and I voted for Trump. I was appalled and horrified. They treated him I don't know if that's supposed to be inhumanly or inhumanely, regardless. You're certainly welcome to that opinion. It's different than anything we've seen. I tweeted a clip of the video on Friday afternoon and said, hey, we'll talk about this on Monday morning. Said, we've never seen anything like this 7 minutes and 54 seconds before. Never seen it before. Just completely different than anything we have ever had access to. That's why I loved that it was televised. That's why I loved that it was available. You got a chance to see behind the curtain, so you don't have to wait for the two sides to come out and stand behind a podium and say, well, this is what we talked about, this is what we agreed with, and we weren't able to come to an understanding. We got to see why they didn't come to an understanding.
Yeah, if there was any doubt.
The deal was done. The deal was on paper. It was simply waiting on signatures. All you had to do was get through the meeting, sign the papers, have lunch, and go home. But for whatever reason, whether it was intentional or not, whether he doesn't have the discipline to hold his tongue, whether he just couldn't help himself in terms of taking a shot and kind of telling the United States what's what. And oh, by the way, have you seen some of the things that Zelensky has said since that meeting on Friday? If the United States doesn't continue funding Europe, you have to give us... This whole you have to give us thing, where did that come from? Where did the idea that we, and whoever we as you want it to be, whether it's the United States or France or the UK or any other country, the idea that we have to give you fill in the blank?
Sounds like the Biden administration to me. Very entitled.
I don't disagree with J.D. Vance going, hey, pal, what if you just said, thank you, Mr. President, we are ready for this war to come to an end. It's too costly. It never should have happened in the first place, but here we are. And Trump made a great point. He's like, it's going to be hard to make a deal with all this hatred that you have for him. I understand that you hate Vladimir Putin. I understand that you hate Russia. But you're going to have to at least partially set that aside. Actually, no, you don't. I just need you to shut up and let me negotiate the deal. And your people can stop dying. It's really that simple. But Zelensky couldn't do it. If it's not televised, it becomes a he said, she said meeting. That's from Keith in the Berg. Here's another one. I voted for Trump, but he's on the wrong side of the Ukraine conflict, and Ukraine can't hold an election during wartime. It's part of their constitution. We are reliving the 1930s right now in Europe, and again, we are on the wrong side of it. It's Donald in Oxford. Here's the only place I would disagree, though, Donald. If you say that we are siding with Russia, or you say that we are siding with Vladimir Putin, then I would agree that we're on the wrong side of it. I don't think that's what we're doing. We have very clearly helped the Ukrainian people. But there comes a point where you have to clean up your own yard. Right? Think about it this way. It's a very silly example. You live in a neighborhood, and you've got a lawn mowing business. And you go out and you cut people's grass, and you make everybody's yards look wonderful, right? You mow them once a week. You edge the driveways, you edge the sidewalks, you pull the weeds out of the flower beds, you weed eat, you blow it all off, and you come back and you do it all again next week and the week after that. And you got 100 yards that you do that with. But there's one that you don't, your own, for whatever reason. And your yard looks like a jungle, and you got toys strewn through the yard and grass up to your knees, and the grass is growing over the sidewalk. And at some point, you can't just take care of everybody else's yard. You got to fix your own, too. That's where the United States is. At some point, you got to stop helping everybody else exclusively, and you got to take care of your own business. And the business that we're talking about is the $36 trillion debt, infrastructure that needs repair, waste and fraud that they're trying to, just trying to get everything on track. But instead, you just keep pouring money into the other part of the world, another part of the world. Let's grab a couple of quick sports headlines. It was a good sports weekend for both Mississippi State and Ole Miss on the hardwood. We start with the Rebels, who got a win over Oklahoma, but it was not easy. Ole Miss led by as much as 11 in the first half. They took a 1-point lead into the locker room. 39-38 was the halftime score. Rebels outscored OU 48-46 in the second half en route to a 3-point win, 87-84. Ole Miss is now 20-9 on the year. They are 9-7 in the SEC. They are a lock for the NCAA men's basketball tournament. March Madness. Sean Padula had 26 to lead the way for the Rebels on Saturday. Mississippi State badly needed a win, and they got it at home against LSU. Despite the fact that the Bulldogs were down 2 at the half, trailing 37-35, they outscored LSU by 14 in the second half. Josh Hubbard goes for 30 for Mississippi State. Bulldogs 20-9 on the year, 8-8 in the SEC. It really was a good basketball Saturday, as number 1 Auburn clinched the SEC regular season crown with their win over Kentucky, combined with Tennessee's win over Alabama. Florida spanked Texas A&M late on Saturday night. Tennessee hit a buzzer beater, 79-76 over Alabama. What an incredible environment in Knoxville for that game on Saturday. Vanderbilt, a 4-point winner over Missouri, 97-93 in overtime. Vanderbilt is now 8-8 in SEC play. South Carolina has now won 2 in a row in conference play after beating Arkansas at home on Saturday. And Georgia went to Austin and got a really important win over the Texas Longhorns. Georgia now 6-10 in league play. They have a monster game tomorrow night against South Carolina. What about on the diamond? We got time to do that really quick? I think we do. Let's start with Southern Miss. What felt like it was spinning into an awful week for Southern Miss baseball. Remember, they lost on Tuesday last week to Ole Miss 15-8, and they just walked the entire world. Terrible pitching day. And then they lost game 1 in Fort Worth to TCU 5-2. Southern Miss, they were able to turn the week on its head. 5-3 on Saturday to split the series. 11-3 yesterday. Southern Miss goes and they beat a good TCU team. Take 2 out of 3 on the road. Up next for the Golden Eagles, they travel to Starkville Tuesday afternoon to take on Mississippi State. Speaking of Mississippi State, the Diamond Dogs went down to Houston, Texas to play in the Astros Foundation College Classic. Their first game was against Rice. No trouble with them. That was an early start on Friday. Beat them 14-3 in 7 innings. But then trouble the rest of the weekend as Mississippi State lost a one-run game to Arizona 6-5. And then yesterday they lost a 2-run game to Oklahoma State 9-7. So the Bulldogs go to Houston and they go 1-2 in their 3 games. And finally, Ole Miss at home this weekend on Friday. Beautiful Friday afternoon. Big crowd, 9-1. Ole Miss a winner over Wright State. Another big crowd on Saturday. Ole Miss got it done 8-3. And yesterday they finished off the sweep of the Raiders of Wright State with a 7-3 win. Ole Miss hosts Southeastern Louisiana and Murray State this week in the midweek, 6:30 and 4 o'clock. And then Jacksonville State is the final opponent before SEC play begins. Final weekend opponent, anyway, before SEC play begins. So that's a bit of a baseball roundup for you. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. We'll get to more of your messages, plus we'll take a look at the lottery update brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery. Find them online at mslottery.com. MRC back right after this.
Simply irresistible. Simply irresistible.
From the Venable Glass.
All right, now to the important stuff.
Your VIP pass to hear what the most influential Mississippians are talking about.
This is very important. Huge news.
Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Your daily update from the Mississippi Lottery. Check them out online at mslottery.com. That's the Mississippi Lottery. We start with Lotto America, which continues to grow. Tonight's drawing, $25,460,000. That's the jackpot value with an estimated cash value of $11,990,000. Saturday night was the last time we had a drawing. The numbers were 8, 9, 13, 33, 41. Did I say 9?
9.
The Star Ball was 6. The All-Star bonus multiplier was 3. Also, Powerball, no jackpot winner, but a ticket matching 4 out of the 5 white balls, and the Powerball won a prize of $50,000. It was actually tripled because of the Power Play multiplier, and so that prize went to $150,000. The ticket was purchased at the Circle K store in Ocean Springs. The big jackpot estimated for tonight, Monday, March 3rd, $279 million, $131.5 million. That's the cash value. Saturday night's numbers were 2, 23, 36, 44, 49. The Powerball was 25. The Power Play multiplier was 3.
Well, double play Saturday, March the 1st drawing, 6, 19, 37, 66, and 68. You had a Powerball of 6. Mega Millions, there's no jackpot winner yet. The Tuesday drawing from March the 4th is up to $215 million. A little over $100 million in cash value there. And the numbers from the Friday drawing, 9, 19, 30, 35, 66, Mega Ball of 16, and a Mega Plier multiplier of 3.
All right, let's see. That you got double play from yesterday, 6, 19, 37, 66, 68. The Powerball was 6. No jackpot winner on Friday with Mega Millions. The next drawing coming up on Tuesday, $215 million. The cash value, $100.9 million. Friday's numbers were 9, 19, 30, 35, and 66. The Mega Ball was 16. The Mega Play multiplier was 3.
Well, the Sunday cash $500 midday 253, the evening 723 cash for $5,000 midday drawing 3206. The evening numbers 1742, Fireball of 0 and a cash pop of 7 in the midday, and an evening Fireball of 4 with a cash pop of 2.
Did I just read the same numbers that you had already read?
See, no cross.
I realized I was about halfway through that. I was like, he's already done this.
Now we know even better.
Yeah, now you know.
We're
Just
good.
file them all away. Somebody was driving along and they're paying attention. They're like, he just said that, Richard.
It's important. We had to say it twice.
Hey, we got the winners from the final My Lottery Dream Home bonus promotion. That was held on Thursday, February 27th. $25,000 prize headed to Okolona, $15,000 to Saltillo, and $10,000 on its way to a player in Hattiesburg, plus 5 winners scoring those $1,000 digital gift cards we told you about. They are from Sturgis, Meridian, Columbus, Chunky, and Nettleton. Winners will be notified by certified mail. Keep an eye out for that. And don't forget, all entries from this promotion are automatically entered in the second chance drawing for a shot at $1 million. That's at the end of the game. For full prizes, prize info, details, and rules, go over to My Lottery Dream Homes promo page on the Mississippi Lottery website. Last week, the Lottery Claims Office, they had kind of a light week. They only paid out $356,000. It's because you didn't take your tickets to them. But retailers paid out over $5 million last week. And let's see, we got winners. Tell me about some winners.
Cash 4 winners. Water Valley woman won $800. A Livingston, Alabama man, $1,350 in the pocket after picking up a ticket at Jimmy's Mini Mart in Tumsuba. And Mendenhall man, $2,600 from Andy's Food in Monticello. Byram woman, $2,900 on a ticket from Byram Chevron in Byram. A Terry man won $5,000 on a ticket from Byram Gas in Byram. A State Line player, $5,000 richer on a ticket from the Clark Oil Company #1 in State Line. And the big dog right here, a Tishomingo man, $18,200 richer on 7 tickets purchased from the Sprint Mart number 41 in Iuka.
Just kind of got a heater on that roll of tickets, right? Just keep on tearing those things. I'll keep scratching
7.
them. Cash Pop winners, Columbia man, $1,250 on a ticket from Andy's Food in Monticello. A New Hebron woman, $2,250 on a pair of tickets from New Hebron Quick Stop in, yeah, you got it, New Hebron. And we'll give you some 200X Cash Blitz winners as we wrap things up this morning. A Macomb band won $1,000 on a ticket from Loves in Macomb. Jackson woman, $1,000. Murphy Oil in Richland and Meridian woman, $1,000 on a ticket from Hampton Shell in Meridian. Guntown man, $2,000 on a pair of tickets from Sun Express in Tupelo. Spent the day in Tupelo on Saturday. West Point man, $2,000 on a pair of tickets from Fair Oil Louisville in Louisville. And also from Murphy Oil in West Point. How about that? You win $2,000 and you buy tickets from 2 different locations. It's quite the lucky day. Somebody said we skipped match 5. Let me give you the match 5. Jackpot for tonight, $300,000. The numbers from Saturday, 9, 12, 19, 24, 35. That's your Mississippi Lottery update brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery. MSLottery.com. 7 o'clock hour coming up. The news is next.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Wake up, get up, and start your day right with Mornings with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Thanks for being with us. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. As you ease out the door, or maybe you stumble out the door, run out the door, trying to get everybody where they are supposed to be on time this morning, we say to you, good morning. Thanks for being with us. We also tell you that the C Spire text line is open to you at 601-879-4395. Give your business the edge with gigabit fiber internet and a host of business IT services from C Spire's business team. Check them out online at cspire.com/business. C Spire, customer inspired. This hour of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough, and if you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you're not alone. That's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They can provide a full range of employer services, plus a custom plan that fits you. Give them a call today, 601-206-7966, or go to mwgemployerservices.com. Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury, was on with Margaret Brennan. Still got a job this week at CBS, Face the Nation. She hosts their Sunday morning show. And he very methodically went through what happened, what could have happened, what should have happened on Friday in the Trump-Vance-Zelensky meeting. Listen in. This from Face the Nation on CBS.
Margaret, it is impossible to have an economic deal without a peace deal. The sine qua non for an economic deal is that Ukrainian leadership wants a peace deal.
I thought this was a building block towards getting to
a peace deal. It was supposed to be, but President Zelensky came into the Oval on Friday. There were 3 things that were going to be done. There was going to be a press conference, there was going to be a private lunch with 16 of us, and as you could see from Dan Scavino's the post on his X account, we were already set up to sign the deal. So it's unclear now. President Zelensky has thrown off the sequencing. And Margaret, let me tell you the most tragic part of this. The President Trump's idea for this economic arrangement was to further intertwine the American people and the Ukrainian people and show no daylight, to show the Russian leadership that there was no daylight. And President Zelensky came into the Oval Office and tried to relitigate in front of the world the deal. And the place to have done it would have been in the private lunch.
So there would have been an opportunity to discuss issues with the deal. They were going to finish the meeting in the Oval Office with the TV cameras there, and then they were going to go have lunch, and then there was going to be a signing ceremony for this deal. And behind closed doors, it could have gotten as heated as it wanted, and tempers might have flared, but the deal itself likely would have not been off the table. Marco Rubio explains this pretty well. We're going to listen to it in the 8 o'clock hour. We'll do that at 8:20 probably, either 8:05 or 8:20. We'll listen to the Marco Rubio explanation. Boy, if you saw some of the pictures of Marco Rubio sitting on the couch there in the Oval Office, man, at one point, it's like he just kind of shrunk down into the couch, and I feel like what he wanted to do was go, like all the air was just coming out of the balloon. All the work that they had done behind the scenes, and he saw it. It was like a crash, a slow-motion crash happening in real time, and he's like, Zelensky's blowing it. He's blowing it, and then he blew it. Now, it doesn't mean necessarily that it can't be at some point revived somewhere along the way, but it's going to be hard to do. And Donald Trump said as much. And ultimately, Donald Trump said Volodymyr Zelensky can come back when he wants peace. He doesn't want peace right now. Because to get peace, there is going to have to be concession. And there are a lot of people that say, well, this is just kowtowing to Russia. No, it's not. Russia's going to have to make some concessions as well. But you know what you got to do to get Russia to make concessions? You've got to get them to the negotiating table. How do you get them to the negotiating table? The United States becomes the proxy negotiator for Ukraine in this. The United States is the only entity with Donald Trump kind of at the head of the table. They're the only entity that has the ability right now to bring this war to an end. Thomas in Greenwood says, if you keep being objective, texters are going to call you a Russian asset. Maybe so. Have you seen what Russia wants in negotiations? Full capitulation of Ukraine, removal of all NATO troops in all NATO countries in Europe. It's not going to happen by either side. No, Donald, it's not going to happen where all of the NATO troops are out of all of the European countries. But saying what Russia will and won't agree to when they're negotiating with Donald Trump, not Joe Biden, not Emmanuel Macron, strikes me as a little presumptuous. It really does. There's so much going on here. Zelensky wants more money to keep fighting so he can still be the head of Ukraine. Yeah, I mean, based on Ukrainian constitution, as long as the war's going on, there won't be an election. And people have asked Zelensky if he would step down if the Ukrainians were admitted into NATO. And he's like, well, yeah, maybe so. I mean, if I could negotiate that, I'll step down as president. If as a country we're admitted into NATO, then yeah, I'd probably do that. Which maybe that tells you all you need to know. Was the goal in all of this to get into NATO? It's not going to happen. Ukrainian membership in NATO is a non-starter for the United States. Ukrainian membership into NATO might be the linchpin that starts World War III. That might be the tipping point. And Donald Trump said as much in that meeting for everybody to see right there. You are toying with the start of World War III. What do you think Zelensky meant when he said, "You've got an ocean separating you, and so you don't feel it right now, but you will." And that is when Donald Trump lost his cool. He said, "No, you don't tell us what we're going to feel. You don't know what we'll feel. You don't tell us what we'll feel." Putting words in the mouth of the United States was not what Donald Trump wanted to hear from Volodymyr Zelensky. CC in Senatobia says these other countries taking up for Zelensky are doing that because they want the United States to keep giving the majority of the funds to Ukraine, not them. Here's the question that I have. We had a resurgence over the weekend in people going to the Ukrainian flag as their avatar on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, the I Stand With Ukraine. Can we make a delineation between I stand with the Ukrainian people and I stand with Ukraine? Do you stand with the United States? And I was thinking so much about this over the course of the weekend. And I just wondered, the people that are so supportive of Ukraine, do you believe in the United States? Are you still for Team USA? And maybe you can be both. Maybe you can. But the anti-American sentiment that goes along with "I am for Ukraine" is stunning and baffling to me. We're going to switch gears when we come back. We've got a conversation coming up with you that I think is interesting to a lot of people in the state of Mississippi, and it's the conversation about Kratom. We're going to talk with Dr. Jennifer Bryan from the Mississippi State Medical Association, Jeff McCutchen, Chief of Police with the Oxford Police Department, and Marie Cochran, who has a heartbreaking story that her family has had to endure because of Kratom usage. That's coming up next on Mornings with Richard Cross right here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
From the What's happening? You're waking up to what's happening. Mornings with Richard Cross. Right now on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome again. This is Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi. So glad you could join us as you make your way to school or to work this morning. Be careful out there, and hope your week is off to a really good start. Alongside Lance Talbert, I'm Richard Cross, and we're about to be busy. We got a bunch of people on board all at the same time. Dr. Jennifer Bryan joins us. She is with the Mississippi State Medical Association. Oxford Police Chief Jeff McCutchen joins us. He is president of the second vice president of the Mississippi Association of Chiefs of Police, and Marie Cochran joins us as well. Her family has endured more than any family should have to endure in recent years because of Kratom. And so, Dr. Bryan, let's start with you this morning. I think there are some people that know about Kratom. They know about what is going on, but I'm just going to be honest. I think there are a lot of people that have no idea what we're talking about when we talk about Kratom and the availability of that. I'm going to use this phrase, and then you correct me if I'm wrong, opioid-like substance, or at least a substance that has very similar tendencies to opioids.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us this morning. You're right. There is a deficit of kind of understanding of what we're talking about. So first of all, I'll say the FDA did declare this, classify it as an opioid 4 years ago. This is a very dangerous product that acts just like pain medication and stimulant. It binds the opioid receptors in the brain and has those type both stimulant and opioid effects on the brain at higher doses. We're seeing overdoses. We're seeing deaths from this. It's causing quite a problem, and it's something we've been engaged in the past few years, and it's finally gaining momentum across the state. We're seeing problems border to border here with this in households and really disruptive to people's lives.
There are a bunch of entities in Mississippi, the entire law enforcement community, whether you're talking about Police Chiefs Association, Sheriff's Department, state troopers, et cetera, in addition to a number of medical organizations that would like to see Kratom put on the schedule as a controlled substance. Police Chief Jeff McCutchen joins us this morning. Chief McCutchen, I appreciate your time as well. So in terms of law enforcement, the law enforcement community wanting to see regulation and scheduling of Kratom, tell us a little bit more about that. We got Chief McCutchen there?
Yeah, I got him on here. Let's see.
Not hearing him right this second. We'll come back to Chief McCutchen in just a second, or we'll at least try to. Let's bring Marie Cochran into the conversation. And Marie, first of all, I'm sorry for the pain that your family, your children, and you have, and extended family members have had to go through in the loss of your husband. He became, at least as I understand it, addicted to Kratom and took what was seemingly normal life and kind of spun out of control over the course of a couple of years. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Hey, good morning. Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate you letting me come and share my story with y'all. I love talking about it as much as I can, every opportunity I can. Jeremy, let me first and foremost say he was a wonderful man. He was a Marine. He was very proud of our country. He was very proud to serve our country. He was also a Christian. He was a devout father, husband, just checked off all the boxes, right? He's the kind where you would never expect this to happen. Unfortunately, like some veterans in our country that we struggle with PTSD, mental health issues. Jeremy was the same. He had struggled in the past with addiction, more hard drugs before, things that were very easily accessible, things that would get him into rehab. But the thing with that is he was very functional. He was a leader at work. He was a manager. He ran a very prominent construction company in Atlanta at that time, and had a lot of great friends following him. But he was very functional. And he was able to get off of them cold turkey without having any issues. We moved to Mississippi so I could be closer to my family. And around that time is when he was introduced to Kratom. And he was very organic. I used to call him very granola. He loved natural. He loved herbs, all things. He loved his green drinks. But just very healthy, just very, very very healthy man, never broke a bone in his life, never had any health issues. But he got introduced to Kratom through gas stations. And slowly but surely and eventually very aggressively became addicted to Kratom. He became somebody that we didn't recognize physically, emotionally, mentally. He became very distant, began having hallucinations. His hygiene was terrible. He lost his job. Every bit of his money that when he had a job was going to pay for Kratom. He spent easily $50,000 in 1 year just on Kratom alone. It was very, very difficult to watch somebody and have them tell me, but it's good, it's fine, it's natural. I'm not addicted to it. It's fine. When I knew better, I dug in, I did the research, and no matter what I tried to tell him of, this is what's killing you. Sorry.
Let's pause there for a second, Marie, and we'll give you a second to gather yourself as well. And let's see if we've got Chief McCutchen where he can jump in now. Chief McCutchen, police chief in Oxford and part of the State Association of Chiefs of Police. Chief McCutchen, what are you seeing on a daily basis? Obviously, the law enforcement community would like to see Kratom removed from the readily accessible gas station shelves. You walk in and you see it all over the place. Tell us a little bit about the position of law enforcement. I think we've got some issue with the connection with Chief McCutchen. So let me ask you, Dr. Bryan, about that as well. Mm-hmm. We're in a spot where you can walk into a gas station and easily purchase Kratom products. What's going on with this? Why is it so readily available?
So a couple of things. One, this for lack of a better word, snuck in under the radar kind of as an additive. And before we knew it, it was available literally everywhere. So I want to say again, you wouldn't buy Percocet over the counter in a gas station, and that is exactly what's happening. This is the next phase of the opioid crisis. Our rehab centers are overflowing. Your child, your spouse can walk in and do this, and what we are seeing are rehab centers overflowing. The expense with this is significant. I'll say with our law enforcement partners, their problem is, like with the intervention courts, they're having trouble with people who are trying to, when they work through the courts, to have a job in the community, while they're working off their time or sentence. They were testing negative and for drugs at that time because we couldn't test for Kratom, but they were losing their jobs and running out of money. And that was eventually how they kind of stumbled into how widespread Kratom is interfering with the lives of people that are trying to return to the community. We're seeing families broken up. We are seeing people bankrupting themselves, dying from this medication that right now literally any person can walk in and buy. And before he gets back on the line, and I hope we get him, I did want to thank Commissioner Sean Tyndall with the Department of Public Safety, who came onto the coalition this past Friday and just briefly mentioned the Mississippi State Troopers Association, the Mississippi Sheriff's Association, the Mississippi Law Enforcement Officers Association, the Association of Chiefs of Police, the Mississippi Municipal League. Yeah. And then, I think it's 32 cities and 15 counties around the state already have banned Kratom. There's broad support on the local level that this is a problem. We need it Schedule 3, and we need a ban, just like we did with tianeptine through the legislature a couple of years ago, which has been wildly successful.
I don't want to conflate two conversations here. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of talk about hemp as well in the legislature, and what we're talking about, I think, is either synthetic or unregulated substances that are readily available. How does all of that tie together?
I'm so glad you brought that up. I'll comment first on the synthetic. I would like for legislators to watch that. There is no synthetic Kratom widely available to my knowledge. It's leaf extract in the gas stations right now. This synthetic thing has come up, in my opinion, to kind of poison what is strong legislation. Is if this passes, if this gains legs, maybe we can manufacture synthetic Kratom on the side and still keep selling it. The problem is all forms of Kratom need to be off the gas station shelves. They need to be off the shelves, period. Regarding hemp, not the same. Hard to overdose on hemp, but people are dying from gas station Kratom right now.
We'll pick up the conversation in just a couple of minutes, visiting with Dr. Jennifer Bryan from the Mississippi State Medical Association, Marie Cochran, who lost her husband to an addiction to Kratom, and hopefully we'll be able to get things squared away with Jeff McCutchen, the police chief in Oxford, and part of the Mississippi Police Chiefs Association. Quick timeout. This is Mornings with Richard Cross. An important conversation happening here with you on MRC on SuperTalk Mississippi. We're back right after this.
Mississippi.
Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Waking up Mississippi. From South Haven to Scuba, it's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Back with you, Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Thanks for being with us on this Monday as we start a new week, the 3rd of March, visiting with Dr. Jennifer Bryan from the Mississippi State Medical Association. Marie Cochran, and also Oxford Police Chief Jeff McCutchen. And we're going to try here one more time to start things off with Jeff McCutchen. Chief, appreciate some of your time this morning. We're talking about Kratom and the readily available product in gas stations in many places across the state of Mississippi. The law enforcement community has come out strongly against this being available the way it is. Talk to us about law enforcement position on this issue.
Yes, sir. Good morning. I think this is very important to talk about. We experienced this around 2019 where we were starting to see high school students, college students, and then members of our community have adverse effects to this drug. And I did get to hear both stories, and they're exactly right. You have no idea what you're getting out of a gas station. When we looked at this in 2019, we bought several samples. We sent them off to labs, and here's what we found out. Most of the products didn't even have legitimate kratom in it, and then the products that were tested, they had so many different elements from lead to even insecticide. I mean, it was all over the map what was in this. You don't know what the doses are. The potency is inconsistent. I mean, it's random, and half the time, again, you're not even getting the real product that you think you're buying.
So, Chief McCutchen, from a law enforcement perspective, what is the outcome that you and your colleagues would like to see? Is it complete ban? Is it regulation? Is it scheduling so that this is something that, if it were to be administered, has to come from doctors? What are you looking for?
Yeah, we want to ban it from being able to just a wide range of these convenience stores and gas stations. Again, what we've asked for is a Schedule 3, and again, get it out of these places where there's no regulation. There are a lot of studies that people are going to tout and say, well, people in other countries are taking this, and this is the way. But here's the truth: that's not what's happening in America. When you go to Asia or these other places where they may be taking a direct product grown, they're also not mixing that with other medications, with other drugs. This is where you see psychosis. This is where you see overdoses. This is where you see law enforcement having to deal with someone that they're completely in a state of crisis. And so you can't use that data to say this is what's going to work in America, and then you go buy it out of a gas station. It's not apples to apples.
Forgive me if this is an elementary question, but people go to a bar. And they can buy a beer or they can buy a cocktail. Is there a scenario where we are going to see kratom drinks that are available in bar settings?
Again, I hope not. I think that's something that we're going to be passionate about fighting, because the argument continues to goes back to the same thing. Who's regulating it? How do you know what products you're getting? What are the adverse effects of, let's say you do get a kratom drink. Who has studied what happens when it is made, when it is then stored and stays in a container or in some warehouse, and the temperatures are all going all over the place? Any type of medication that you get, it tells you, store it in these certain type of environments, do these things. So if we don't have regulation, if we don't have someone looking into this, we're just taking an unknown product, we're pushing it onto people, and then law enforcement, first responders, they're the ones that's going to have to deal with this. And you've already heard the stories of how this impacts families. We're looking at, hey, how can we make a buck and we can put some type of intoxicating environment into someone, when we need to be looking at, let's look at the health side of it. Let's look at how it's going to affect our families and our communities first, and then take steps to move forward.
That's the voice of Oxford Police Chief Jeff McCutchen. He's also on he's vice president of the Mississippi Police Chiefs Association. Chief McCutchen, appreciate you joining the conversation this morning. Hopefully this is a conversation that we can continue with you down the line.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Marie, I would like to come back to you just for a second. As you hear Dr. Bryan talking about this, you hear Chief McCutchen talking about the issues. Is this something that provides you any level of peace? Is it what's the feedback that you have gotten in your fight to see Kratom removed from the shelves, especially in gas stations? We may try and I apologize for the technical issues. Trying to do 3 guests at one time is sometimes a challenge. So, Dr. Bryan, the legislature, I mean, this is kind of in their hands. There's a bill that's been passed by the Senate, and I think you alluded to this a second ago. I think the wording is naturally occurring is okay. It's the synthetic piece where they are potentially looking at elimination. You don't think that goes far enough, though?
All forms of kratom need to be off the shelves. Leaf only, synthetic only, that's not enough. It needs to be all forms. And I would like to follow up the regulation comment. No matter how clean or regulated you make this product, you are then talking about a pure opioid. Again, the FDA has classified this as an opioid. We have made strides in this state on the opioid crisis. This is a major backslide to be able to purchase this in the gas stations. We need to close the back door to accessing these drugs. No doubt it helps some people with their pain because that's what it is. That's what it does. And it addicts people the same way these prescription medications do. I don't think anybody here thinks that you need to be able to buy Percocet in a gas station, yet that's exactly what's happening.
All right, so let me ask you this from a medical perspective. So we talk about scheduling, right? Schedule 1, Schedule 2, Schedule 3, and that has to do with controlled substances. They have to be prescribed by doctors. They're very highly regulated in pharmacies in the way that they are distributed. Is there a place for Kratom in the pain management field as prescribed by doctors, in the same way that despite the fact that there is a terrible opioid problem, there is a place for opioids in at least the way they are prescribed when it's done responsibly?
Right. So what I would tell you is that opioids have been prescribed for many, many years, and there are plenty of opioids that are available for pain control. This is not unlike the cannabis conversation that, sure, any product can be researched, but when this one has been researched, and they initially thought there was some hope in this field, but there was not. There were too many side effects, too many problems, too many toxicity issues, and so it was really largely abandoned as a valid measure of pain control in the prescription arena. Now, certainly new research could prove things, but the way things are being done right now, it's quite reckless. And again, I'll say the rehab centers are overflowing with these people, and the expense to the system is quite significant. We really are at a crisis point with this. It's a common sense situation that we just need to get this stuff off the shelves in our state. There is a lobby at play here, and while I understand there's a lot of money in this market, the lives of Mississippians are at stake, and I really appreciate our coalition here at Sprawl, particularly Commissioner Sean Tyndall. And I forgot to thank Justice Robert Chamberlain with the Mississippi State Intervention Courts Advisory Committee. And could I mention Lieutenant Governor Hoseman, Senator Angela Turner Ford, Senator Joey Fillingham, and Representative Stacey Wilkes and Lee Yancey, and Senator Daniel Sparks, who have all been great partners on advancing this and understanding the issue our state faces.
And just for clarification, are we calling Kratom an opioid or an opioid-like substance? And maybe there's not a lot of difference, but just in terms of technically.
We have said both, but in that letter I think you got a copy of, we talk about the FDA did classify it that 4 years ago as an opioid.
Okay.
But again, it acts like it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, and this is just a hole that needs to be plugged in the situation.
Marie, I think we've got you back on the line, and I appreciate your patience this morning. I'll go back to what I asked a second. As you hear this conversation with Dr. Bryan and Chief McCutchen, is this something that gives you some level of peace, that gives you a level of optimism, or is there another emotion that comes up for you?
Oh my gosh, I can't even put into words how appreciative I am of this and how much meaning and purpose it puts specifically to Jeremy. And I will say what makes Jeremy's story so impactful and so meaningful in all this is his death was ruled via autopsy 100% was from a kratom overdose, from kratom intoxication. It says it on his death certificate. So there's not a single person in this world, I don't care who you are, what kind of education you have, I don't care, because I have a death certificate that says it. And nobody in this world can tell me that Kratom does not kill, because I deal with the repercussions of it every single day. And if one person, that being Jeremy or whomever else, one person loses their life as a result of Kratom, that should be enough. That's enough.
Yeah. Marie, it's a powerful story. We appreciate very much you sharing it with us this morning. This is a conversation that we're going to continue to follow. It's legislation that we're going to continue to follow as well. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Marie.
Thank you for letting me. I appreciate it.
Dr. Bryan, thanks for coming in this morning, being in studio with us. My appreciation to Jeff McCutchen, Chief of Police in Oxford, as well. We'll continue to talk about this. Thank you so much.
Thank you for giving us the platform.
We've got more coming up. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. We're back with you right after this.
Want to know what's happening in Mississippi politics?
Yes.
You're in the right place. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Back with you on Mornings with Richard Cross. Again, my appreciation to Marie and Chief McCutchen and Dr. Bryan for joining us this morning for a part of an important conversation, and that's about the availability of Kratom, particularly in gas stations where it is not at all regulated, is easily available, is very expensive, and is a problem. You can join us on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. Andy says, wait, your guest last week said it was not an opioid, didn't he? I think we addressed that with Dr. Bryan, and that may have been on a different show. Today's the first time we've had any sort of a meaningful conversation about Kratom. And Dr. Bryan pointed out a couple of times that in 2019, the FDA put Kratom on the list as an opioid. It was classified as an opioid. We get another message here. It says Kratom from a reputable vendor is a totally different product from gas station Kratom. We're only hearing one side of the conversation. Kratom from a reputable vendor is as different as buying vitamins from a health food store or vitamins from a gas station. Gas station Kratom is cut with so many different ingredients until it's probably dangerous, but we need to have another conversation about Kratom from a reputable vendor. Midday did a great segment on Kratom. And here's how I responded to that message. I'm just going to read you my response to the texter. I said, I think that's kind of the point of putting Kratom on the schedule, where it is a Schedule 3 controlled substance, in which case it has to be prescribed with very very strict dosing by a doctor and administered through a pharmacy. You get it off the gas station shelves and into the hands of medical professionals. And then the other point that I mentioned to the texter is, like, not every interview serves the same purpose. You know, if we're going to talk about issues, we're going to try and look at multiple sides of an issue. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to try and do so in a respectful way. This morning, we were telling this side of the story, Marie's side of the story. And I hope you heard me multiple times say that we will continue this conversation in the weeks and the days to come. Steve tells us that he said, I know from firsthand experience how addictive Kratom is. It's actually more addictive than even hydrocodone. Thankfully, I was able to quit on my own before a disaster happened. Another message, my son-in-law has used Kratom. And when the lady described her husband, it was an exact fit for him. He has constant medical problems as part of deteriorated health and a massive emotional and financial strain on his family. When he can't buy it in a gas station, he finds a way to order it online. So it's a very serious issue. And, you know, I asked Dr. Bryan about hemp. That's been a conversation as well, because you've got hemp drinks and hemp products that are out there. And one thing that Dr. Bryan pointed to is that there is a lobby effort, which means that You got somebody that is for an issue, and they are paying someone to try to convince legislators and other elected officials that their side of the issue is the right side of the issue. And that's how the lobbying industry works. Tim in Tupelo says this is also not just a Mississippi issue. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Alabama has banned it. That's correct. Alabama has. I know folks that live in Alabama that drive to Mississippi and buy it in bulk and take it back and they sell it as well. It needs to be banned statewide. That's from Tim in Tupelo. Yeah, so there are multiple states. There are cities within the state of Mississippi that have banned Kratom. Let's see here. I can tell you, because I got it right here. Alabama, Arkansas, Indiana, Rhode Island, Vermont, Wisconsin, 15 counties and 32 cities in Mississippi have banned Kratom sales. And so you've got this coalition of law enforcement and the medical community that are seeking Kratom to be banned in Mississippi. Period. And when I say banned, I mean put on a schedule. And if you're not familiar with scheduling, so a Schedule 1 narcotic is like heroin. And then you have psychotic medications that are medications that are for serious psychiatric issues that are Schedule 2. And then Schedule 3, you're talking primarily about your controlled substances that are used for pain. Hydrocodone, oxycodone, etc. Scary stuff. And if you got kids, I've got kids, many of you have kids as well. As tragic as Marie's story is in the loss of her husband, Jeremy, as a 42-year-old, grown-ups do have the ability to make decisions. And you hope that they're mature enough to make decisions that are best for them. We got a lot of kids that are not educated enough to make decisions about whether or not they should put that into their bodies, and it's scary. We'll be back.
Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Welcome to the show.
Just after 8 o'clock on this Monday morning, good morning and welcome again to Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. C-Spire text line is open to you at 601-879-4395. On Friday, there was a meeting in the Oval Office. President Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. There were others in the room as well, including media, and you got to watch it all. But if you've missed it, here is your chance. This is kind of the last 10 minutes or so of the conversation. I want to play it for you. We'll talk about it in the next segment. Here's the President, J.D. Vance, and Volodymyr Zelensky.
You want me to say really terrible things about Putin and then say, "Hi, Vladimir, how are we doing on the deal?" That doesn't work that way. I'm not aligned with Putin. I'm not aligned with anybody. I'm aligned with the United States of America and for the good of the world. I'm aligned with the world, and I want to get this thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred, and I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either. So it's not a question of alignment. I'm aligned with the world. I want to get the thing set. I'm aligned with Europe. I want to see if we can get this thing done. You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough. But you're never going to get a deal that way, so that's the way it goes. All right, one more question.
Hey, I want to respond to this. So look, for 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace And the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact
2015.
2014.
2014 and
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
that's exactly right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, yeah, the situation the same. The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed him with gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Count once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's backed you far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war,
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country's in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this. you have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
you haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military
president.
equipment, and
voted
you
for
men
your
are brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about
if you didn't have
You
our
invited
military
me.
equipment,
You invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak.
have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
Maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this. I tell you.
Just say thank you.
I said a lot of times to American people.
Accept that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's
I
very
understand.
important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the cards. You're buried there. Your people are dying.
tell you
You're
again,
running
I
low
know.
on soldiers.
Don't-
Listen,
don't please,
you're running
Mr.
low on
President.
soldiers. It would be a damn good thing.
Mr.
And then
President.
you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go, and I wanted this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
with guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't
It doesn't
with
matter
me.
for you what
That wasn't
this
with me.
means. It
That was
wasn't
with
you.
a guy named Biden, who was not a smart person. That was with Obama.
It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards.
One more question to Mr. Vice President. I'm sorry.
It's going to be a tough deal to make, because the attitudes have to change.
What if Russia breaks ceasefire? What if Russia breaks peace talks? What do you do then? I understand that it's a heated conversation right now.
What are you saying?
She's asking, what if Russia breaks the ceasefire?
What if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now? Okay? What if they broke it? I don't know. They broke it with Biden, because Biden, they didn't respect him. They didn't respect Obama. They respect me. Let me tell you, Putin went through a hell of a lot with me. He went through a phony witch hunt where they used him and Russia. Russia. You ever hear of that deal? That was a phony Hunter Biden, Joe Biden scam. Hillary Clinton, Shifty Adam Schiff. It was a Democrat scam. And he had to go through that. And he did go through it. We didn't end up in a war. And he went through it. He was accused of all that stuff. He had nothing to do with it. It came out of Hunter Biden's bathroom. It came out of Hunter Biden's bedroom. It was disgusting. And then they said, oh, the laptop from hell was made by Russia. The 51 agents. The whole thing was a scam. And he had to put up with that. He was being accused of all that stuff. All I can say is this. He might have broken deals with Obama and Bush, and he might have broken them with Biden. He did, maybe. Maybe he didn't. I don't know what happened. But he didn't break them with me. He wants to make a deal. I don't know if you can make a deal. The problem is, I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out.
So that's the line at the end. You're either going to make a deal or we're out. And it may not be pretty. There is a lot to unpack from that 10 minutes. We'll try to do some of that when we come back with you. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi, streaming at supertalk.fm and SuperTalk TV. More MRC after this.
From the Venable. Now, what's happening across your state? Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
to Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi. Thanks for being with us as you get your day going. Alongside Lance Holman, I'm Richard Cross. You want to join the conversation, you can do so on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. So, a lot in that 10-minute clip, and the 10 minutes was part of about 40 minutes in the Oval Office. And prior to that 10 minutes, kind of the last 10 minutes of the meeting, the conversation was pretty civil. You did have, and President Trump mentioned this in that clip that we played. You did have Zelensky continuing to say, I don't know about a ceasefire. I don't know about a ceasefire. So there are a couple of things at play here. One, the deal had been negotiated. The deal was done. It was drawn up, and it was waiting for signature of all the parties that day. And the deal that we're talking about is the mineral rights deal for the United States to attempt to make the United States whole financially for what they have invested into Ukraine during this 3-year conflict. The deal does not have security guarantees in it, where it says the United States must defend Ukraine. But it would make sense that the United States, if there is a business relationship there with Ukraine, would defend its own interests, and that would be helpful to Ukraine. But the United States being a business partner with Ukraine would also be a significant deterrent to anybody that wanted to attack that country, primarily Russia. So there were some things that I thought that Donald Trump or J.D. Vance said that really stood out. Donald Trump was asked a question about alignment, who the United States was aligned with. He said, I'm aligned with the United States of America. Pretty powerful line there from the president. Turning point in the meeting, they call for one more question, and J.D. Vance interjects. He goes, may I, sir? And by the way, an interesting dynamic with the vice president. When's the last time we saw a vice president with this type of platform, and we saw a president that empowered and allowed his vice president to have such a significant role? I think it speaks to the trust that Donald Trump has in his vice president, J.D. Vance. But the turning point in the meeting was after J.D. Vance made his comments about respecting the United States, and he thought it was disrespectful to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate the issue with the American media. And Zelensky says, can I ask you? And then revisits the past and the issues that they've had with Russia. That was the point where the meeting changed. Now, I will grant that Zelensky's point about, okay, what if Russia backs out of the ceasefire? What if they violate the ceasefire agreement? Because they've done that in the past. Not an unreasonable point, but probably not the proper time to raise that point. He's trying to make Ukraine's case in terms of not accepting a ceasefire agreement with Russia without a lot of contingencies, and he's trying to do it in front of the cameras. And Donald Trump changed his persona, his mood. It changed dramatically when Zelensky said, you've got an ocean between you. You're not feeling it right now, but you're going to feel, and Trump interjected at that point. He goes, don't you tell us what we're going to feel. You are in no position to tell us what we are going to feel. Pretty strong words from Trump when he said, you're gambling with millions of lives. You're gambling with World War III. He repeated that a couple of times. Did you like the Zelensky played dumb when J.D. Vance mentioned coming to the United States and campaigning for Kamala Harris in Pennsylvania? And Zelensky goes, what are you speaking about? as if the video of the Pennsylvania officials signing the bombs, the missiles, doesn't actually exist. Why does Volodymyr Zelensky say, when he is sitting in the office, the Oval Office, his biggest patron, the biggest giver to them, why does Zelensky say, since the beginning of this war, we've been alone? Ukraine has been anything but alone for the last 3 years. And then when Trump compares, when he says, Obama gave you sheets, I gave you javelins, if you don't get the reference there, he's talking about the $600 billion in aid that the Obama administration gave to the Ukrainians for supplies, non-military aid, etc. And Trump says that they gave you a bunch of non-military stuff. We gave you javelin missiles to take out tanks. And then you heard Zelensky ask the question, where are the guarantees? There's not a guarantee. There's not going to be a guarantee, at least in terms of a security guarantee. The United States has been clear about that. And there's certainly not going to be a guarantee of NATO membership moving forward. Not going to happen. All right, so I brought this up earlier. And it was the whole, all the avatars on social media and all the social media posts of, I voted for Trump, but this isn't what I voted for, and the I stand with Ukraine, and the Ukrainian flag is, the header on your Facebook profile or your Twitter profile or your Instagram profile. And it struck me as very short memories. For the people who said, I voted for Trump, but this isn't what I voted for. Oh, no. See, here's what I mean by short memories. You're back into that. Remember when you thought Trump was kind of a mean tweeter? Mean tweets Trump? And that was put off. Remember when you didn't like the way he delivered a message? You thought he was too abrasive. You thought he was a little crass. You thought he was unbecoming of the office of president. And then you endured 4 years of Joe Biden as president. And you were faced with the possibility of Kamala Harris as president. And what did you do? You voted for Donald Trump. And why did you vote for Donald Trump? Maybe you thought he was the better alternative. Maybe you're a Trump person. Maybe you thought, I just can't vote for Kamala Harris. Or maybe you realize that the policies that the Democrats had in place for the last 4 years had made you less financially stable, had made the United States weaker. We're taking the United States down a path that nobody wanted to see the United States go down on a permanent basis, which very well could have been the case had you had 4 more years of a Biden-like administration with Kamala Harris. So when you say, I voted for Trump, but this isn't what I voted for. No, this is exactly what you voted for. And if you say this isn't what you voted for, it means you weren't paying attention during the campaign, because Donald Trump told you very, very clearly during the time in which he was running for president, this is what I'm going to do. These are the things that I am going to do. We are going to bring an end to the war between Ukraine and Russia. Well, but you're siding with Russia. We are going to bring an end to the needless death of both Russians and Ukrainians, and we're going to do it because I've got the power to do it. I'm going to do the things that force this war to come to an end. Well, but you said the price of eggs was going to come down. What an aside. What an aside, right? You've got 4 years of a presidency shaping an economy, and this expectation that in 5 weeks you're going to turn the whole thing around. It's crazy. We got more coming up with you. We're going to take a timeout. JT Mitchell will join us from the SuperTalk Mississippi news team. We'll look at some headlines, some stuff that happened at the end of last week, over the weekend, and what we are watching for in the legislature going into this week. You've got it locked into Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi, streaming at supertalk.fm, SuperTalk TV. More MRC after this.
From the White House to your hometown, this is where you find out what's happening. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Good to be with you this morning. Mornings with Richard Cross. JT Mitchell joins us. He's the news director on the SuperTalk Mississippi news team. A couple of things I want to remind you of quickly before we visit with JT. One of those is you can get your kids ready for the ACT. Next ACT test date is fast approaching, but there's still time to help your child maximize their score results with Jumpstart Test Prep. Points gained on the ACT can save tens of thousands of dollars in college tuition. The Jumpstart Review is on demand online to meet your schedule of videos, subject area workbooks, instantly scored assessments, and practices that deliver complete content review with all the tips and strategies your child needs to work faster and better on test day. Order today at jumpstarttestprep.com and give your child the Jumpstart advantage. We are glad to be with you this morning. Just a couple of messages quickly on the C Spire text line. One says, I wish JD had kept his mouth shut for just 2 more minutes. Trump is both able and efficient of speaking for himself. JD come across as rude and interrupting. That is one perspective. The other is the vice president decided to stand up for his boss and potentially be the bad guy as opposed to causing the president to have to do that. So, a lot of perspectives on this. Certainly are. JT Mitchell, good morning to you, my friend.
What's up, brother? How are you?
Good to be with you. What is shaking in the SuperTalk Mississippi newsroom?
Well, one headline that might not be that exciting, but it is worth reminding people, is that if you want to vote for your next mayor, your next city council, school board, etc., go down the ballot. Today is the final day to register if you're not already registered to vote. You got to do that by 5 p.m. Get to a clerk's office, get it done, or you can go to supertalk.fm and get the form. You can fill it out, mail it in, but it has to be postmarked by today. And so if you want to vote in the April 1 primaries, you got to get it done. There will be another chance if you don't vote in the primaries to vote in the general, to register, should I say, for the generals. But why not vote in both? Go ahead and get it done.
You know, a lot of places across the state, the primaries are going to be incredibly important because you got a lot of candidates, none more so than in the capital city of Jackson, where, you know, we've joked about the number of candidates, but you've got about 20, give or take, that are in the primary field. And while that vote in the general election is certainly going to matter, the vote in the primary this go around is critically important.
Yeah, that's exactly right, especially for Jackson, a city that has long been Democratic controlled. The Democratic primary may be the next mayor, the winner of that, or at least if there's a runoff, the winner of the runoff may be the next mayor. So go ahead and get ready to vote. You talk about Jackson, you hit it on the head, Richard. 20 candidates as of this moment. I believe 12 of those are in the Democratic primary. And you and I, we talked, I guess it was last week, about the first mayoral debate that happened at Doling Hall. We have a second tomorrow. That's going to be at 6 p.m. on the campus of Jackson State. You can go in person, but if you can't make it, our good friends at WJTV are hosting. Byron Brown is going to be moderating, and you can watch it on their TV station at 6 p.m. But really, across the state, I've seen a lot of events going on. I mean, over the weekend, our partner, the Gazebo Gazette, hosted the Long Beach debate. On March 8th, we have the Pass Christian debate. Still waiting to hear word about if there's going to be a Gulfport debate. And then, of course, there are cities like yours, Richard, Oxford, where the incumbent has no challengers. But it doesn't matter. There's a lot of races worth voting in. And really, while we're talking about this, if anybody on the text line or anybody listening has information about candidate forums, candidate events in your neck of the woods, please text in or email me, news@supertalk.fm.
Okay. The time changes on Saturday night / Sunday morning. Daylight saving time returns this weekend. This is a spring forward time, not the fall back version that we get back in November.
And this might be the most polarizing topic all day long on your show. The daylight saving time deal, I mean, it gets people fired up.
Because there's so many people that want to see us go permanently to daylight saving time, and it felt like there was some congressional, like at the national level, momentum for that. And then you got Donald Trump that came out and said standard time was what we needed to go to permanently.
Yeah, it's quite interesting to watch that because year after year, you see a lot of Republicans get behind some legislation that would make daylight saving time permanent. And you thought that it was getting some momentum. You've seen 20 states pass trigger bills, including our state, Mississippi, pass trigger bills that if Congress gets that presidential pen stroke at the end of the day to make daylight saving time permanent, automatically goes into effect. But then you're right. Donald Trump, just weeks after being inaugurated, he put out on Truth Social that he wants standard time, and that does not seem very popular. There are some people who like standard time, but at least most of the people I come across, they like the extra sunlight in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but they like having that extra sunlight. I mean, think about it, I guess, for a baseball game. You're naturally a sports guy. You have a baseball game in the summer that first pitch is at 7 p.m. You get a good amount of time with the sun still there, the sun setting in the summer months. But if you go to standard time, you might get an inning of two, and then it's dark. So I don't know, but
it's a bad example. This needs to be a golf example. Like, I'm not playing baseball.
Okay,
but you tell me I got a little extra time on the golf course in the summer. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm for that.
And a good even better example is when you wake up in the morning. If we stick around with standard time, you could have sunlight hitting your bedroom curtains at 4:30 a.m.
That's pretty early.
How's that sound? I mean, it might be better for you and me, but
a little easier to roll out of the sack in the morning when it's like that.
And I think that's probably part of President Trump's argument. Doesn't matter, though. The PSA is this Sunday. Set your clocks on Saturday night unless you plan to stay up until 2 a.m. That's when the clocks will change. We'll spring forward. You will lose an extra hour of sleep, but you'll get an extra hour in the afternoon with the sun out bright and shining. So
amen and amen.
That's right. And it will
I am for it.
Last until the first Sunday in November.
Just one more reminder that spring officially is on the way and it's going to warm up and it's not going to be chilly forever.
Punxsutawney Phil was wrong. I have major beef with Punxsutawney. He said we were going to have a long winter. It felt good this past week.
It did, but then it got cold over the weekend as well. We were in Tupelo for a track meet on Saturday. And I guess it was Thursday when the weather was just spectacular. It was like 80 degrees. You get people wearing shorts all over the place. And then you get that drop, and it's like in the 50s with the wind out of the north. And it's like, it's colder than the Arctic Circle right now. Or at least that's what it felt like. Maybe exaggerating just a little bit. What about the legislature this week? What's on the docket?
Well, we got a big deadline. Looking at my magic notebook here, tomorrow, Tuesday, March 4th, is the deadline for committees to report general bills and constitutional amendments originating in the other house. So what that means is if a House bill was passed by the House, sent to the Senate, referred to a Senate committee, or two for that matter, tomorrow is the deadline for those committees to approve or not approve, and either take it to the floor for a vote or say to heck with it. And it's a big deadline. Committees is where a lot of the action takes place. And I mean, for example, you and I have been on top of this whole tax reform debate for what feels like ages now. And HB1, which is the House's side, SB 3095, which is the Senate side, they both sit in the opposite committees with no action at this point.
Yeah.
And tomorrow's the deadline to do that. Sports gaming, that's another one that has gotten hot in recent months. I've seen billboards all over Jackson. I've heard radio ads all over Jackson. I've been hearing from people in other parts of the state that have also had some ads pop up on their phone or heard it on the radio, seen it on the TV, that there are a lot of advocates out there right now for sports betting. This bill, HB 1302, currently sits in the Senate Gaming Committee, and tomorrow's the deadline to get it out. If it doesn't come out tomorrow, it is DEAD at least at first. It's never dead till it's dead in the legislature.
You know, fascinating issue on the online sports betting. The line of delineation seems to be the bigger national properties that have a presence in Mississippi are absolutely for it. Some of the smaller properties that are either single or just a couple of establishments seem to be against it. I think most of the public, I'm just speaking in a big old generality, is for online gaming, at least online sports betting. And to me, that may be the line that we ought to be looking at is, are we just talking about online sports betting, where you can do that like you can in a sports book, or does that open the door? Does that become the gateway drug for all online gaming? We're back after this.
From the Venable Your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Hey, we were talking about bill deadlines before the break, and just a point of clarification, and I don't know that this may be me not saying it the right way. You were talking about deadlines for this week. Now, we do know that there are later deadlines on the money bills, right? Revenue and appropriation bills have a later deadline. We're talking general bill deadlines that have to come out of committee for tomorrow, and then that kind of clears the deck for taxing and appropriation and budgeting that happens pretty heavily in the last few weeks of the session, right?
That's correct. So okay. The next revenue and appropriation deadline is March 18th, and that's for original floor action on bills from the other house. Yep.
There you go. Yep. So, clear as mud? Good. Glad we got that out of the way.
Murky as always. Yep.
Yeah. You know, you had Trump and J.D. Vance and Rubio and Zelensky on TV just kind of airing it all out in public. You think we could get a live stream of the meetings of the back and forth on the tax debate?
Well, it depends on where they're at. I mean, you're going to...
wherever they are. Let's just stream them and, just let's watch the whole... let's all watch how the sausage is made.
You're going to have to hope it's in committee or hope that it is on the floor.
No, I'm not talking about those meetings. I'm talking about the ones that happen with the doors closed, where you're trying to sort everything out and get to a point where you can have legitimate conversations in committee and floor debate.
Well, I got bad news for you then, because Hinds County Chancellor Dwayne Thomas actually just recently affirmed the ruling of the Ethics Commission, saying that the legislature can meet behind closed doors.
See, JT, you're coming with all this stuff. I'm just talking about for entertainment purposes.
Well, I'm with you, and it would be entertaining, but I'm also about transparency, Richard. We're talking about sunlight. Your live stream would definitely give some sunlight, and I think that we could also probably make some money off of it.
Yeah, this is the 2025 version of being a fly on the wall. You've always heard, I'd love to be a fly on the wall. Well, now I'm just saying I'd love for there to be a video stream of this where we could watch it and hear it all. And
you and me both.
That'd be riveting.
Maybe.
Hey, you'd be proud of me, though. You remember last Monday you were talking about, you were going to be one of the rare people that was actually watching debate on the Senate floor. I did it.
Really?
I did.
And what did you think? Is it as riveting as you imagined?
It was interesting. And it was, it was when they were debating the Senate tax bill last week. I'm not going to lie. There were moments where I thought, should we have some stronger requirements for what you have to be or do to be elected to public office? That thought crept into my head. There were some people that I heard speaking on the floor that I thought, they really like speaking into this microphone, which I know that's rich coming from me. It's kind of what we do for a living, so,
It is. And when you watch these debates, if that's what you want to call them,
the parliamentary procedure stuff is really fascinating, though.
It is, but it gets old quick.
It does.
But
it does.
When you watch these debates, I'm in an interesting situation because I watch, listen, and record. I roll tape, right? And then I go back and transcribe if I'm writing an article about it or whatever the project is I'm doing. And sometimes when I go back and transcribe, I'm like, that person was making a lot more sense than they came off when they were presenting, or vice versa. It's a lot of times these people will present stuff and what they're saying might make sense, but the way their presentation is, it's just not very consumable. And so I'm in an interesting position where I go transcribe and read back through it. But it is fascinating, and I'm not out there encouraging. Please do not go listen to the Senate or House every single day for the rest of your life, to all the listeners out there. But I do recommend, you won't be that happy, but I do recommend you do it once. It's interesting to watch.
It's worth seeing how our government works. There's no question about that. This is not related to Mississippi, but I just saw this pop across. The New York Times is reporting that due to pressure from the Trump administration, the Mexican drug cartels have not felt this much stress in years. Leaders are going into hiding and shutting down fentanyl labs. From the New York Times, one cartel leader says he's trying to figure out how to protect his family in case the American military strikes inside Mexico. Another said he's already gone into hiding, rarely leaving his home. Two young men who produce fentanyl for the cartel said they've shut down all of their drug labs. A barrage of arrests, drug seizures, and lab busts by the Mexican authorities in recent months has struck the behemoth Sinaloa cartel, according to Mexican officials in interviews with 6 cartel operatives. That is fascinating.
It is fascinating. The whole drug situation between Mexico and the U.S. is fascinating. Especially, you see stories like this, and then you saw the other day when Mexico sent 29 drug cartel figures back over here, I guess for
extradited into the United States for
trial,
for jail.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you
ask, there's a lot to keep up with.
It is.
Now.
And when you ask the Mexican president, she always has some sort of witty remark about guns.
Thanks for being with us this Monday morning. Lance, thank you, sir.
Y'all have a good one, guys.
You as well. JT, always a pleasure, my friend.
All right, guys. Thank y'all.
We'll do it again tomorrow, mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi. Have a great Monday.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.